So here we can see, guys, on our Elastic Cloud Compute, what we've got is we've got a running instance of 1, we've got an Elastic IP of 1 now, we've got a volume of 1, and even if I go back to, for example, my services and my VPC, guys, just to take a look at our dashboard now, this kind of 50,000 foot view, what we'll see is that we've now got 2 VPCs. We've got the default VPC, and now we've got my own Greg's VPC. So also we can see running instances are 1 now, Elastic IPs are 1. So this is also a very good way of kind of keeping track on things to see if I've got anything turned on, if I want to keep my available credits. So again, I don't get caught out by leaving instances on. I should shut them off and terminate them when I'm not using them. Okay, so what I wanted to show you very quickly before we finish up this is I wanted to show you, well, at this moment in time, we've got obviously a, let's go back to our EC2 dashboard. We've got basically a public subnet, we've got a private subnet, and it's possible to launch resources into those. So for example, if I launch an instance, what I could do is I could launch an instance into a subnet. Let's just go back, let's go back to the VPC. I actually wanted to show you something in here just before we go any further. And we can go to our subnets. So again, this is back to our subnets, and you can see in here, guys, we've got our private subnet and our public subnet. Also, we can see it's connected to our VPCs, so quite clearly. Just something else to just mention here, our route tables. At the moment, guys, we can see, and I always like to drag this out so we can see exactly what we're looking at. We can see this particular route table is, if you like, let's have a look. It's connected to our, let's bring this up so we can have a good look at this, guys. So at the moment, there's no subnets associated with this. Oh, my apologies. This is our, in fact, this is going to our, well, we can make this out. We know this is going to be our private subnet, don't we? And again, if you're not sure on this sometimes, what you can do is just have a check on the other one. Let's go back to up here. And we can see, in this case, you can see this is linked to our subnet of 10.0.1.0. So I indeed know that that's our, for example, that's particularly our, that's our public subnet, isn't it? So let's just, for a moment, guys, go back, just now that we're getting our insight into this network, let's go back to our EC2 dashboard. And let's imagine if I was to spin up a new instance in that public subnet. So if I go launch instance, what we'll actually see, guys, is we should actually see when I launch this instance, it should get an available IP address from the public subnet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Amazon AMI Linux version. I'm going to select T2 Micro is absolutely perfect for my needs. This is where the magic happens here, guys. This is the really important step. So again, used to what you saw me in previous videos doing is you just saw me just basically saying, oh, spin up one instance and put it in the default VPC. If I wanted to, if this was a production fleet of web servers, what I could do is I could spin up 10 instances. But again, I'm just testing, so one is absolutely perfectly fine. What I'm going to also show you is now I want to spin up a resource in Greg's VPC. So that's really, really important. So I want to use Greg's VPC. And then what I want to do, guys, is I want to choose to launch this instance into the public subnet. Okay, so I'm going to choose public subnet. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I get a public IP assigned. So I'm going to say enable to that. So that's going to ensure that when I get an instance spinning up, it's going to go into that public subnet. One other thing that I'm going to do, guys, right down at the bottom, like I did in the previous video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically, maybe what I'll show you is I'm going to add a little script in here to basically launch let's launch a web server when it starts up. So let's click add storage. I've just got a simple bash script here to launch a web server. I'm going to click on add storage. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to go add tags. I'm going to add a tag here. So I'm going to call this name, and I'm going to say Greg's test server. And basically I'm going to configure a security group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a rule here, guys. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to say HTTP traffic. Okay, port 80, allow everyone. And I'm going to say that's absolutely perfect. I'm just going to make sure that this is called Greg's security group. Or Greg SG for security group. Review and launch and launch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I've got Greg's key pair still. So that's perfect. Now, I'm not interested in logging into this particular instance in this particular demo, guys, but what I want to show you is very quickly, I want to show you that this basically will launch an instance in Greg's VPC, so my VPC now. So you can see there's other instances that are basically running in here in my account, guys. You can see, for example, the NAT instance is in here. So this is the NAT instance. Okay, so I can see this. What's running or setting up, guys, in the background is this Greg test. But just while Greg test is loading up, let's just click on the NAT instance for a moment. So again, we can see that this has a public IP address, guys, of 189. So that's the elastic IP it has. If I go into Greg's test server now, I can see, guys, that I've got, this is launched in Greg's VPC. I can see that I've got a public IP address. I've got basically an IP address that's gone into the public subnet. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy my public IP address and see, can I access this resource? So I'm going to copy the public IP address. I'm going to go into a new tab and I'm going to see, can I now see my basically instance? And there you go, guys. I've got a public instance running now in my own virtual private cloud in its own public subnet. Okay, and I can see that I've created a security group to allow that traffic in on port 80. So no longer am I launching resources into the default VPC, that's now going into my own VPC. Okay, guys, I hope that was, and just one last thing before we go, just to tidy up after ourselves. Okay, let's just go back into our management console, just maybe make sure I can get back in here. What I should do here, guys, is now that if I'm finished with this, I should terminate my instances, make sure I get rid of my NAT instance and also this EC2 Linux instance. I'm going to terminate these, guys, instance state. I'm going to terminate these instances. And what I'm also going to do, guys, is I'm going to make sure, so you can see they've fully terminated, I'm going to make sure that I release that elastic IP because I don't want any charges. Now that I've no instances running, I'm actually going to get charged for not using this public IP. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that public IP. It's already selected. And I'm going to say release elastic IP and release. And the last thing I'm going to do, guys, the very last thing, okay, it's saying could not be released. Why is that? It's saying basically it's still in use. So what's happening in the background there on my EC2, they're still being terminated. They're still saying, hey, that IP address is still being used. I'm not going to allow you to delete that until those other instances get deleted. So let's give it another second or two and let's try it again. Let's try release again. And this time, I imagine it should be now terminated. Let's give it a try. And now you can see it is allowing me to release that IP because my EC2 instances are now deleted. One last thing to clear up, guys. Again, nice to tidy up after ourselves. I did create that VPC after all. What I could now do if I wanted to clean up my subnets, my route tables and so forth, what I could actually do is go back into my VPCs and actually delete the VPC, the virtual private cloud. So again, this was Greg's VPC. I can click that, make sure that's selected, go actions, and I can go delete VPC. It will ask me to confirm by pressing in delete, so I'll need to type in delete here. And what it will also do, it will delete this VPC along with these resources. So again, it's going to get rid of my private and public subnet, my security group, a routing table, and also an internet gateway. And I'm happy for that to happen. I'll press delete, and that's now deleting them. Okay, folks, I hope that you've seen a lot in this video. We've created a VPC using the VPC wizard. We've created 2 subnets. We've added a NAT instance into the public subnet. We've explored the VPC configuration. I even added a second instance just to show you firing one up into my own virtual private cloud. And I tested it to show you that we could reach it. If I go back to here now, it's still showing, but if I refresh my page, this should disappear, right? It shouldn't be able to contact it anymore. Why is that? Because again, remember, and that's going to keep loading and loading, but again, remember that instance now is terminated. So if I try that again, it's basically going to say, I can't get there. It's going to keep trying, spinning and spinning and spinning until basically it says, sorry, Greg, that resource just cannot be found. Okay, folks, I hope that was beneficial for you, and thanks for viewing. Bye for now.